Hi, and welcome to this episode of Rare Book Chat.
Hey, Jeremy.
Hey, Michael.
And after summer's over, the book business gets back into full swing.
Yeah, exciting time.
I saw this George Orwell letter come up at auction. And, you know what? Whenever I see Orwell stuff, I kind of pause because, you know, he died right when 1984 came out. He was in the hospital a lot. You don't see signed books. And so whenever I see his handwriting, I perk up a little bit.
Really?
I pay attention.
Interesting. It's cute.
Well, it's cute. Not cute. It's just
I
real.
think it's cute if you perk up.
Yeah. So this auction at Remarkable Rarities, actually, it's just they are auctions. That's what they go by. And they have a lot of great stuff. They have Mozart, Beethoven, Marie Curie, they have all this stuff. But the Orwell letter, I'm scanning quickly, and I see his handwriting. I stop, and I'm like, oh, cool, an Orwell letter. And then I read it, and I thought, this is even better.
Yeah,
it's a good Orwell letter. Okay,
wait. Give me the lot. Give me the estimate. Give me the headline. Or orient me here.
It's lot 7061. The sale is September 20th, and the headline is George Orwell autograph letter signed on tuberculosis and finishing 1984. Here's a quote from the letter. I'd done about half my novel and shan't touch it again till I'm well. Yeah. So the date is critically important here.
Pivotal moment. He may not get back to it.
Yes, that's what I was thinking. I mean, I know he does. Hey, just to the side, when I read these letters, I do try to put myself into the mind frame of the writer of the time. So what you just said is really key.
Yeah, he doesn't know.
He doesn't know. I like that. And then I don't know if I put myself in that mindset, sort of.
Yeah.
And
also the other thing is, when he's writing this letter, I'm almost certain that those stains weren't there yet. So, it was a clean sheet of paper, blue ink. When he sent this off to Powell, it was quite...
Well, why do you think that?
You think he wrote the letter on paper with stains all over it? Coffee stains?
Oh, but the stains there are stains. Let's just throw it out there. The 2 pages, and there are stains on the letter. And I don't know, do you think Powell mistreated the letter?
No, I mean, I'm not done.
He's writing this in a hospital or sanatorium.
Yeah. All right.
But I don't know, it could be a coffee stain. So the estimate is 10,000 plus. And that sounds right to me. He's very, very sick here. It's January 1948. He's about to try an experimental cure for tuberculosis. It's streptomycin. This was starting to be used in the U.S. and it was very difficult to get. And he pulled some connections to get some. The side effects were horrific.
Oof.
I mean, horrific. This is the beginning of the last 2 years of his life, by the way, where he's spending half his time in hospitals. So him finishing 1984 is heroic, as we will see. Okay. So he starts the letter talking about saddles and riding side saddle. He's talking about horses because the petrol situation is so calamitous that one has to use horses for certain purposes, which I'm only bringing up because that reminds us that's 1948. It's just after World War II.
Well, there's another interesting line in here. As I'm scanning, it says, it would be like shooting a fox sitting on something. That's a pretty improbable sentence.
Yeah, but if that were the end of the letter, I wouldn't be that interested. Let's get to the meat and bone.
But it is an interesting sentence. It would be like shooting a fox sitting on something. Think about that.
You think that sentence has ever been written before?
Well, yeah, I do. And also, what do you think? Like, what does shooting a fox have to do with whether or not you're sitting or not sitting?
He also says I don't think we would use a side saddle. Why would he use a side saddle? That means sitting side saddle on a side saddle. I don't know what I'm talking about.
I'm realizing I don't know anything about shooting a fox. And there's a fox who comes in my backyard every morning. Anyway.
Yes. And what do you think about shooting the fox?
No. He's cute.
It's interesting. Okay. Here's the meat and potatoes of the letter. This is why it's going to sell high, I think. Okay. I've been here for 6 weeks and I think I'm getting better. I don't feel nearly so death-like, and by day the x-rays are beginning to show progress, though very slight. I'd done about half my novel and shan't touch it again till I'm well. But I'm starting to do a very little light work, i.e. book reviews. I've just done one and I feel I've broken a spell, as I hadn't even contemplated working for 3 months. My handwriting is so bad because my right arm is badly crippled. I'd like to do something for the TLS, but if I do, it'll have to be handwritten because even if I had a typewriter here, I can't at present get my hand into that position. Now he veers off. Did I tell you I was starting up a uniform edition, as everybody seems to be doing, and then there's a very nice hospital, blah, blah, blah. Okay. So all that. But he is very, very sick. And he says his book, 1984, is half written. And he's pushing through. And to him, as we know from other things, I mean, this is the most important thing, is to finish this book.
Yeah. And he did it.
And he did it. What do you think of the handwriting on the letter, by the way? He mentions that he can't write very well.
It doesn't look so good. Wobbly.
It is wobbly.
Slanted. Very slanted.
When you see the handwriting, it does bring you a lot closer. Especially this. I mean, this is, especially when he's talking about the handwriting.
It's good.
Jeez. It's good. So as I mentioned, the estimate is $10,000 plus. And there's a lot of time to go.
What are you thinking?
Well, this letter came up for sale a few years ago, 2015, and brought £6,000. So what is that, $8,000 about? Do you think it's going to go more? It brought £6,000 10 years ago. What do you think?
Yeah, it's going to go more than that.
Has to, right?
Orwell has had a mega moment, so he's still having that moment.
1984 was a bestseller, number one bestseller in 2016 again. So, just today, this morning, I get off the subway and there's a big poster on the station that says, "Art illuminates dark times." And there's a picture of Orwell at his typewriter. Thought that was weird.
Yeah. You know what I think is weird is the fact that his name wasn't George Orwell.
That's a good point, because he's writing to, I didn't even say who he's writing to. He's writing to his friend Anthony Powell, the very successful writer, and as he signs it, George.
This is something I find fascinating about Orwell.
Yes.
Right? And it is reflected in the letter that you refer to here. This guy changed his name mid-career, and it wasn't just a nom de plume. I mean, he adopted the identity of George Orwell so that he would be writing to intimates and other persons in his life, signing as George Orwell.
Yeah, how would you be you're friends with somebody? You think you're close with them.
Yeah, and suddenly the guy changes his name on you.
I was start calling you Henry or something.
Yeah, it's just, I mean, it's something.
Or people must have been grandfathered in.
I'm going to point you to a letter where I think that,
like Anthony Powell, so his name is Eric Blair, George Orwell's, but Anthony Powell, he's friends enough that he can say, "Hey, Eric."
So it's so unusual because, of course, you have writers who have pen names, but it's weird that I've thought about this, like the signing of the author's name when it's a pen name, right? Is that a real signature? It is.
Is that a real signature?
It is, but of what? And then it raises the question of provenance.
What? No, it doesn't. Are you saying?
It does.
Wait, there's no provenance issue here.
It does. It raises a different. It's not the question you think. It's not the provenance question you think. But I'm saying, like Eric Blair, that name has provenance because that's the first name that he wrote, like in his school book. Put your name in the book. And Eric sits down and he writes Eric Blair. So if he signs a letter, and there are letters, from him signed Eric Blair, that name and his signature has a provenance that extends back to him learning to write.
What I really want to know, do you know this? Did he correspond with somebody as Eric and then shift to George, the same person?
That I looked for that, right? And I didn't find it. But I didn't look very hard. But there's a series of letters from Orwell to a woman named Eleanor Jacques. And he
had the hots for Eleanor.
Yeah.
But apparently she didn't for him.
Okay, so there are a bunch of letters from him to her, came up in 2009 and sold at Bonhams.
I think he was wooing her.
Yeah. But see, these letters are all signed Eric Blair, right? But there's one letter that's sold in 2009, okay? And it's a letter signed Eric to Eleanor and signed with love, right? And it's written while he was correcting the proofs of Down and Out in Paris and London, which had a different title. And that was all, there was something back and forth with his publisher. An aside, Orwell or Blair, whoever he was, his preferred title was Confessions of a Dishwasher, which seriously
sounds like a humorous graphic novel.
Yeah, no, he writes, I've been having but the publisher wanted it to be Confessions of a Down and Out. And he writes in this letter to Eleanor, he says, "I'm protesting against this as I don't answer to the name of Down and Out."
Wait. I like that. Confessions of a Down and Out.
Yeah.
So he's saying, like, you'd say, "Hey, Down and Out."
I'm not a Down and Out.
Right? I like that. Yeah. That has to be humorous, right?
Yeah.
I don't think of him as humorous, but that's got to be humorous.
Yeah. So then that same day, Orwell returns the proofs to his publisher. This is the same day as that letter. It's a letter to Eleanor. And he writes to his agent the following day, Leonard Moore, and he's saying he rather favored George Orwell as a pseudonym, right? So the letter to Eleanor is dated 18th of November, 1932. And he signs it with love, Eric.
Okay.
And he's as you're saying, he's wooing this woman. And then the next day he writes to his agent and says, hey, I think I want to change my name to George Orwell. And he also tosses out some alternatives that he liked, other possibilities. And he let the agent decide.
Ooh, isn't that weird?
Yeah. So I like, it's not a...
No, I'm just thinking about that. Someone else picked your name. Well, your
Somebody
parents
else
picked your name. So
that's right,
we all
yeah.
have someone else who picked our name.
As to a pseudonym. Now, this is Eric Blair writing to his agent, Leonard Moore, and he's about to become George Orwell, right?
That's exciting.
It's exciting. Very cool. But now this is not the letter that sold at Bonham's, but the letter that sold at Bonham's in 2009 was written the day before and is contextualized with this other information. But I'm fascinated by the letter that wasn't sold at Bonham's, which is kind of...
Oh, you can be fascinated by things that aren't on the market. I mean, come on. You're a human being.
Thank you. God, that means... Thank you.
You're allowed.
Finally. So he writes to Moore, as to a pseudonym, a name I always use when tramping, etc., is P.S. Burton. But if you don't think this sounds a probable kind of name...
Wait a minute. I don't know why I think that's so funny, because we should all have a name we use when tramping. I mean, P.S. Burton. That doesn't sound like a tramp's name.
No, it doesn't. It sounds like somebody who sells office supplies. Whose name
He
is
says it with a little pride. It sounds like I always use the name P.S. Burton. Like,
yeah,
duh.
Right. Okay, so he says...
This just struck me funny.
A name I always use when tramping is P.S. Burton, but if you don't think this...
I'm sorry, it just sounds aristocratic.
Yeah.
E.F. Hutton. It just sounds aristocratic.
And he writes, but if you don't think this sounds a probable kind of name, what about Kenneth Miles, George Orwell, H. Lewis Always? I rather favor George Orwell.
I like Kenneth Miles.
Yeah. And the cataloger at Bonham's adds, luckily not H. Lewis Always. Anyway, I think it's really cool because we have this letter that sold at Bonham's, right? Where he signed Eric with love. And then basically the next day, he has initiated this process that's going to turn him into George Orwell, which he embraces so wholeheartedly that then later he's writing letters to Anthony Powell, just signed as George, right? But I kind
of like Kenneth Miles.
No, okay, but you leave that aside.
No.
Doesn't that strike you as really odd? And I'm trying to think of other examples.
It is really odd.
Where you so completely become your alter ego that it's not like a public facing name, and then among his intimates he remains Eric. He becomes George.
I could be a little hurt if I were a friend of his and he calls himself George.
Well, the funny thing is, I was looking and I can't find any other letters to Eleanor after these letters from 1933 in auction records. Now, it doesn't mean they don't...
Maybe she didn't like the name George.
Well, I didn't look very hard, but maybe he had to cut off some people.
Yeah, that would make a lot of sense in the internet era. Like, maybe there's a lot of bad stuff under Eric Blair out there. And he George Orwell, he gets a fresh start.
Well, that's exactly why he changed his name. He was a Burmese policeman, and there was concern about the books he had published previously. He just wanted a kind of a fresh start as a literary figure, but and a more authoritative name, I think, was the idea. But yeah, he just completely reinvented.
Is that more authoritative?
I don't know.
Who knows these things? I mean, we can't look at this objectively because we know the name.
Well, you'd have to be British to know. Does George Orwell sound more authoritative than Eric Blair? We don't know. Does Samuel Clemens sound less authoritative than Mark Twain or more?
More.
An American can answer that question.
More, right?
Which?
Samuel Clemens sounds more authoritative.
Yeah, he does. Sounds like he's got a long handlebar mustache.
Well, or Mark Twain didn't have a handlebar mustache. We had a big mustache. Actually, that's a good example, too. Wait a minute.
Was it not a handlebar mustache?
I don't know. I just think of handlebars more twisty. Twain sometimes signs his letters and books both. Samuel Clemens and Mark Twain underneath it. See, that's cool. That's really cool.
That is cool. But see, that's a wink. And you depreciate that, right? So if you're Eleanor and he signed it Eric George, whatever, she'd be like, that's cool. He changed his name, but he still remembers that I know him as Eric, and he's honoring that.
I would have felt really special if I could call him Eric later in life. In fact, I might insist on it.
But it's an interesting thing, too, because Orwell is the poster child of truth telling, right?
Oh, wow. I didn't think of that. I mean, I yes, but that's interesting. Wait, I gotta say something. You don't see any signed 1984s because he died so soon afterwards. He was in the hospital almost the entire time after it was published. So how's he signing books? There was one signed, I don't know, a bunch of years ago. I think it brought 140,000 pounds signed first in 1984.
I don't know. To change your signature mid-career is kind of an interesting move.
Yeah, I'm sure if we really thought about it, we could think of more.
And like, objectively, do you have any discomfort with the authenticity of a George Orwell signature, even if he signed it, versus an Eric Blair signature?
I get what you're saying.
He's not, like, Eric Blair.
It's not that interesting.
No?
No. He
Really?
is, in that moment he's writing his name, he is George Orwell.
I don't know.
What is a name? What is a name?
I don't know, but I mean, it's a facade. All things being equal, would you rather have a letter signed Eric Blair or George Orwell?
All things being equal?
All things being equal.
I think you got me there. I think I'd rather Eric Blair.
Me too. What about a letter signed at the end of his life, Eric Blair?
Oh, I would like that.
Wouldn't you love that? How would you like a copy of Animal Farm signed Eric Blair?
See, that's a little weirder because it says George Orwell on the book. Nah, it's still good. Nah, I want that. I want that.
So now I have just
See, you just ruined other signed things for me.
I didn't.
You did.
But I just got you to implicitly admit that there's something slightly unsatisfactory about a George Orwell signature. If you could compare it to an Eric Blair signature.
I don't think it's implicit. I think you're right.
Well, okay.
But it's only slight, though.
But I asked you, does it bother you? Well, my question to you was, is there something about it?
It slightly annoys me. It doesn't bother me.
Okay, but but to me, I had never even considered this question before I started thinking about the switch from letters signed Eric to letters signed George, right? And then I started sort of playing around with the idea, and I was thinking, God, I really would prefer Eric Blair's signature to George Orwell's signature. And now that leads me to the conclusion that there's something about a George Orwell signature that is less than optimally satisfactory.
There was a world record set yesterday.
Really?
I like that. A world record.
I like it.
There's a world record in the book world. The Book of Mormon sold this week for $240,000. Now, the reason I know it's a world record is because the auction house has been blasting it over social media. World record.
Yeah.
World record.
Right.
World record.
Right.
Which has got me thinking. If you were the auction house, there's something a little weird about that, right? Because if you're the buyer, you're the buyer for this book.
I know, yeah.
So I'm going for this. So you're the buyer for this book, and you just found out you just paid a lot more than anyone else has paid for similar copies. And the auction house is bragging that you just paid a lot more. Do you feel a little jilted?
Well, I think the offset is that the auction house is now going to get so many more consignments, or they're hoping for that. So even if they have one buyer who feels like maybe he or she, went a little too far, if it brings in a whole raft of new outstanding material.
No, I always think it's weird when they brag about prices, because then I'm thinking, oh, bid at this auction house and you'll overpay. Like, as a buyer, that's off-putting, isn't it?
Yeah. Don't worry about it.
This used to be a $60,000, $70,000 book. No, it jumped in 2 years. It jumped from $70,000 to $120,000 to $160,000 to $240,000 in like a year and a half. Now, for your point about them advertising it means other copies might come out.
Yes.
Which then will deflate the price?
Yeah. I mean, that happened with Argent Species. You had a couple of copies at the $500,000 level in recent years, and then
you did. And that sounds crazy now.
Yeah. Remember with the Norman copy of the Newton Principia?
That made all copies double overnight.
Yeah. And then lots of copies came up at auction. What was it, like 1998? So that's a long time ago. But yeah, it happens.
Right, because now what if people read about this and say, oh, this is a good time for me to sell my Book of Mormon? And they put it in an auction, and another puts it in auction. Next thing you know, it's bringing 120, 100.
Yeah.
And then they're mad.
They're mad, but the buyer's not. The buyer's like, well, I could have paid $240.
Which also, this makes you think about, we talk about auction records as kind of like this gold standard of pricing, but that's not right.
No.
We got to cleanse our mind of that.
It's not your problem.
I like to think about these things.
Yeah, no. I mean, musings and reflections are always valuable. But
most things I think about aren't my own problems.
Yeah.
Right? You too. Anyone.
What do you think about Alvin Creepy Carpus?
I have never heard that name before.
Yeah, I bet you haven't.
Creepy is his middle name?
Yeah. What about John Wayne Gacy?
John Wayne Gacy, I've heard. But no, go back to the creepy one.
I'm looking at a wanted poster for Alvin Creepy Carpus, FBI wanted poster, 1936. What do you think of that?
It's something I do not want under any circumstance.
Yeah, but I just like the name Creepy. He appears to be 25 or 26 years old. Height 5'9", 135 pounds.
Should I have known this person?
Well, I don't know. He's a bad guy. He's creepy. He's nicknamed Creepy for his sinister smile.
Why are you reading this?
Have you ever heard of the Barker Karpus gang from the 1930s?
No. Should I have?
I don't know. The other three were John Dillinger. You heard of him?
Yes, I've heard of John Dillinger.
Pretty Boy Floyd. You heard of him?
Yeah, I thought he was a boxer, though.
Babyface Nelson.
Yeah, I have heard of Babyface Nelson. I don't know why.
Okay, so they were all public enemies, but public enemy number one was Alvin Karpus, known as Alvin Creepy Karpus. Public enemy number one, that's an expression. Now we know who it is, Alvin Karpus. Nicknamed Creepy for his sinister smile.
Okay, do you want to collect Creepy Karpus?
Coming up on September 10th, there's an auction in Davenport, Washington. Grant Zahodko Auctions.
That's a mouthful.
Yeah, it is. I'm sure I butchered that, but the material is mobs, gangsters, and criminals. And there's some pretty wild stuff in here. I found myself fascinated by it, and I found myself thinking, who's the buyer for this stuff? Who's the buyer for, like, a letter by Charles Manson? Ted Bundy's mugshot. Charles Lucky Luciano's... Luciano or Luciano?
Luciano.
Okay. Mugshot and fingerprint card. Estimate $15,000 to $20,000. And I start clicking through, and I find myself...
Who's going to buy that?
Well, hold on. So I find myself going through this auction, and I'm getting intrigued. Al Capone's original 2-page rap sheet. I mean, that's kind of interesting. Lucky Luciano's rap sheet, right? From 1936. His original New York City rap sheet. He's sort of like a pedestrian sort of criminal at this stage in his career. But, historically, it's kind of fascinating, So, like, I'm looking at his rap sheet here, and it says in 1926, he's arrested for felonious assault, right? 28, assault and robbery, grand larceny in 1929. But, I mean, he's a famous criminal. That's kind of run-of-the-mill stuff. So it's kind of,
where do you live that's run-of-the-mill stuff?
Well, I'm just saying, a lot of people, I mean, not a lot of people,
what hellscape are you talking about?
There are a lot of bad guys, is what I'm saying, out there. And so there are a lot of people who commit, larceny and assault and robbery and whatever. But I found myself wondering, like, who buys this?
Wait, I have a lot of thoughts. First of all, just as an aside, I am looking at Creepy Karpus's picture. That guy is creepy. It just has to be said. The nickname fits.
Yeah.
There's a John Wayne Gacy sign limited edition.
Yeah. How does that exist?
Who
put that out?
What publisher says, this is a great idea. Right. We're going to have John Wayne Gacy's signature. What? This is so confusing.
Weird. It's so weird.
Mega serial killer.
Yeah.
I mean, this is as bad as it gets. And I'm looking at pictures. On the cover, there's a picture of a clown that's really frightening because his nickname was the Killer Clown.
Right. This is like
Did he make money off of this? Like, how could you buy this? It came out in 1993, and he was disposed of in 1994. I'm sorry. All right. That's I guess that crystallized what you're saying, because that's just not cool.
It's perverse, right?
Oh, it gives me the heebie-jeebies.
There's a letter here from the guy who shot John Lennon.
Mark David Chapman?
Yeah. Who wants to buy this stuff? Then I started to ask myself, it exists. It should be preserved. These are important artifacts.
Charles Manson letters. Now, wait, so Charles Manson, oh God, his handwriting is ghastly. Well, it looks like a demented person's handwriting, and I wouldn't be wrong. So Charles Manson sends this letter to, I have no idea.
I would be fascinated if I walked into a museum and I saw an exhibition of this stuff. I really would, right?
This is lurid.
Yeah, but I feel that if I walked into somebody's home and, a private collector, and they start showing me the stuff, I would feel some level of like...
Well, I'd be judging them.
I'd feel no question about uneasy, right? And so then I thought, well, where these things belong is, they belong in institutions, right?
Right. You don't like okay, this lot 221. Glass lantern slides of scenes of torture.
Yeah, but like we want these criminals in institutions too. So that's kind of where I'm headed with this. Like, who wants this in their home to valorize or celebrate it? And then I thought, whoa, we're missing something important. If Don Corleone decided he wanted to start a book collection, what would he collect? Or Tony Soprano, what would he collect? He would collect this stuff.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. I'd be judging the collector.
Well, I know, but you might want to keep it to yourself if you find yourself one-on-one with a collector who's amassed a material.
I would definitely keep it to myself. I'd say, wow, interesting collection. I've got to go,
Yeah, if you're Tony Soprano, this stuff is fascinating. You have all your heroes.
Why is it fascinating, though? Like, what are you talking about?
Well, I don't know. First of all, crime is such a part of like our even fictional mind space, right? So many of these characters have been represented in fiction and are part of popular culture in this bizarre way.
So much safer when you read it in fiction, though.
Well,
Or
yeah,
even
but Charles
mentally.
Manson is a pop culture figure in a certain way, right?
I don't know about that.
You don't think so? Helter Skelter? I mean, the Beatles, U2, making all these songs about, I mean, it's seeped in.
Maybe. I would think about that.
Well, Jack the Ripper is a figure of pop culture. The Joker, he's a bad guy.
Well, that's okay because he's fictional. Oh.
How about this one? Jimmy Hoffa, second trial, 1964, Juror's Diary. It's quite lengthy, too.
But Juror's Diary, that's interesting.
102 handwritten pages by Theodore Sears, chronicling his everyday activities and observations. He does not appear to write any thoughts or observations regarding the defendants, nor details of the case. So it's sort of disappointing.
You know what I like?
What?
Just from glancing at this? Prison Art Album.
I love that one.
What is this? 44 originals, fully mounted to album page, done in pencil, pen, and colored markers. I think it's because they don't seem to know, like these aren't famous criminals or anything, so I don't have a backstory attached to them. So you're seeing kind of criminals' emotions, I guess, in prison, and I can think more kindly of the artists or the creators than, creepy, whatever his name was.
What do you think of this? Scale model San Quentin cell, lot 49.
Oh, it was done by the Sacramento Slayer. See, I don't want artwork done by I don't even know who the Sacramento Slayer is, but I don't want artwork done by the Sacramento Slayer.
Why?
You're a different person than I thought.
No, I mean, look, if you're in prison, you don't lose your humanity.
If you got sent to the executioner, you did. My gosh, the toilet. Look at that. Using the toilet paper. This is pretty good. You're right.
That's good.
I wouldn't want it.
I wouldn't want it. But this goes back to my point. If you were walking through a museum and you saw this exhibition, you would stop and look at it.
I would.
Okay. You don't want it in your house, but you.
No, it's a very different feeling of ownership versus
contemplation.
Yeah. I was going to say voyeuristicness. When you own it, once you put money out for it, I don't know, and it becomes part of you in a different way, which is wonderful if it's something great.
But that's what I'm saying. If you're Tony Soprano, this might be perfect.
But I agree that this stuff can't be lost. I mean, if this is lost to history, you're losing history. So someone has to save it, and it makes sense. I guess it makes sense that it's at auction, but I just don't know who's buying it.
There's tension here, isn't there?
Where?
Well, the fact that it should be preserved, but you can't imagine wanting it. But what I'm suggesting is Tony Soprano probably would want it. So look at this. Alcatraz escapees. Wanted.
That's pretty good.
Right? 3 FBI escape prisoners posters from 1962.
Yeah, I bet there's a story behind those guys.
Yeah. They look like bad guys.
Well, I mean, it's not like it was photographed to make them look good.
Now, a lot of this stuff comes, or maybe all of it, comes from the estate of Gordon Poulot, who was a motorcycle police and patrol officer in southern Florida.
Oh.
He saved these from disposal while working in law enforcement.
Well, good for him. Seriously, that he saved these from disposal. That's fantastic. And actually, the fact he's in law enforcement makes it more interesting because he can be like, hey, look, these are all people who were caught. You could spin it as this is a success story.
So the collector for this is like a detective.
Yeah, that would make sense. If I were invited to a detective's house and the detective showed me this stuff, I wouldn't flee.
But what would you do if it was like the milkman? He went over to the milkman's house.
The milkman's a nice soul. I get your point. I think the only circumstance this works is if it's a law enforcement person.
Yeah, like if it's your dentist, you're gonna feel really, really uneasy, right?
Sweeney Todd.
Yeah.